Anyway, guys, you guys recommended I watch this video here by Nick Crowley. You think I would know how to pronounce it well, but I'm a silly goose. Anyway, it's YouTube's darkest videos 5. It's a little, these always make me a little scared. So let's get started.
And so our story begins. Before it's over, we hope you will never forget it.
Yeah, I will try to forget it almost immediately after I'm finished. Or I'm already scared of what's going on in my house. This is what happens when we watch these videos. It make me scared. Okay.
It starts with a chance encounter. 3 hikers are backpacking their way through the densely wooded terrain of the Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
When, through the heavy brush, one of them would notice something bizarre hanging from the trees. It almost looked like a bunch of thin black vines, growing from the stems and overtaking this one particular branch, though it clearly didn't seem to belong there. As the closer they got, the more the object appeared to be man-made, which was confirmed by the sight of a horrifying discovery lying directly beneath it.
What's that?
Dropped there in the middle of the woods was the remnants of a small aircraft.
Wait a minute. Are we saying that that black stuff was like their parts of their body, like their interior crocodile alligator? Because that would be terrible. That would be some horrible stuff, man. That would be terrible stuff.
One that had been there for what seemed like years, judging by the rust and decay. Okay. And it wasn't just the craft itself that was in an awful state of decomposition, but also the 2 bodies within it.
Stop.
It was a heartbreaking scene, and a confusing one as well, as when officers arrived, the cause of the wreck wasn't immediately clear, and the possibility of this crash going without explanation seemed very real.
Probably a woman driver.
Had it not been for those ribbon-like vines hanging overhead.
Sorry.
In reality, those strange objects were actually the remnants of a VHS tape, with its case being cracked open and its contents scattered about the area.
Interesting.
And inside the craft itself were pieces of a broken camera, introducing the possibility that the 2 men inside may have been filming at the time of impact. And so, despite that exposed footage being out there in the elements for an extended period of time, it would be painstakingly pieced together and resurrected, revealing the following footage.
So is this kind of like when you're like recording a Snapchat while you're driving? Is that the kind of energy that we're getting here? Somebody was recording that instead of flying correctly? You know, I feel like the law should extend both ways.
Aboard the airplane had been 36-year-old pilot James Goodell, who had been taking his friend Ronald Wilmond for a flight from Granby to Jeffco, 2 regional airports in central Colorado near the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, which explains the breathtaking scenery that's so apparent throughout the footage.
That's all right.
Throughout the 6-minute recording, we hear brief moments of monologue from James as Ronald sits behind him soaking in the view.
Okay.
Oh, look at that down there.
Whoa. Like Boomhauer's in there.
Until
look at that down
this
there.
moment. The moment that, by many accounts from aviation experts, forever sealed the fate of the plane and its 2 occupants. All around them were tall mountains, which, despite looking beautiful, were soon going to become obstacles for the pilot, as due to something known as density altitude, the small aircraft would not have been able to climb to a higher altitude with enough time to avoid them. Though strangely, nothing is mentioned by James about this unfolding reality, leading some to theorize that he was distracted by the view, and maybe even looking downward at the pristine lake, while the mountain crept closer and closer. It's painful once you realize the predicament they're in, as the closer they get to those mountains, the less chance they have at maneuvering around them. And by the time they do realize, it's already much too late.
Damn. I mean, I don't really want to hear them scream. Is that what we're going to hear next? They just silently sit there as they crash?
Damn, hang on right!
Damn.
Recognizing their...
It's like even more horrifying because they didn't say anything when they were going down. They just kind of sat there. Like, I'm trying to focus on not, passing away. That's fucking horrible. Jesus.
Plight of certain death ahead, James was forced to attempt a nearly impossible U-turn, which ultimately would stall the plane, sending them careening to the fast-approaching ground below, where the footage cuts out moments before impact, ending the lives of these 2 friends in an instant.
Jesus.
And it's there that the wreckage would sit for over 3 years until those backpackers just so happened to take that same route.
Wait, how did nobody know about that? Don't you have to do some kind of thing? Don't you have to register your charter or something? Maybe they're drunk, maybe. I wonder.
Today, the video is used as a teaching lesson for so many up-and-coming pilots.
Jesus, that's fucked up. Imagine having to watch 2 people die as a lesson. There you go. I mean, I guess that'll be a lesson for you, I suppose. Watching 2 people die is certainly enough to keep me from doing a behavior like that. But okay. Hey, what's up, Akmal? How you doing, brother?
As countless schools across the country show the tape to their students in the hopes of preventing a similar tragedy. But evidently, the film has also found a home in the depths of this very site, where it has come to be known as one of YouTube's darkest videos.
For once again, he has come face to face with the adverse effects.
You know what's crazy about that, too? I used to watch Dave Chappelle on YouTube. So for this to be one of the darkest videos, they must be saying something, am I right?
Of density altitude.
Wow, scary.
Here it is.
Is this for me?
It's all yours.
Do you think that Santa... Bro, stop it. You think that Santa Claus has to worry about density altitude, though? Because think about that. I mean, what is the... who teaches Santa how to drive his sleigh? I feel like the aerodynamics on that thing are so incredibly different. Right? Like, it's got to be different. Like, 8 reindeer, well, 9 with the one in the front. Has to be a little bit different than a plane, right? So how do you think that works? What do you think Santa does?
Now, who is left?
Also, what are like the physics behind doing a barrel roll? Did you see XQC guy signed for Kate for 100 million? Yeah, I saw it. I guess I should take a look at that after this. To me, I think my understanding, or my best guess, is that it's not actually like $100 million. It's like $100 million cap or something like that. Like they gave Leafy like a $2 million contract, but it was like a cap or something. I'll look into it. But
it was only the 22nd of December in the year 1990.
It's crazy.
But that didn't stop Von Taylor from kicking off the holiday early. As he sat by the tree, pulling out gift after gift and opening them in front of an old VHS camera.
Okay.
Behind that camera was Edward Deli, a longtime companion of Von who seemed adamant on filming his friend's reaction to the presents.
Wait, why you gotta dodge that?
I don't know. How am I supposed to find out?
That looks a little aggressive. Scare me.
What is it? Baseball card. Okay.
The video is a bit awkward, as the two
What's
momentarily bicker about the camera recording, and Vaughn hardly seems to acknowledge or show any sort of gratitude in response to the gifts he's receiving, but it's seemingly nothing too out of the ordinary.
Well, you know what it is, I think. It's probably because, sometimes you give a friend a nice gift. You give your friend a nice gift, and then maybe like a nice air fryer or something, and then all of a sudden, like, oh wow, I like this a lot, and then next year, all of a sudden, you get a really nice air fryer gift, but you know what I mean? But you're like, whoa, this looks really familiar. Yeah, I thought you'd really like it. Of course I would, asshole. I bought it for you. You know what I mean? So I wonder if that's why.
It's probably reminiscent of so many other home videos out there of friends and family members timidly opening up their presents. Except for one overshadowing detail, with that being who these men actually are.
Who are they?
Before this video was taken, both Vaughn and Edward had served time in prison, Edward for arson and Taylor for aggravated burglary. And upon their release, it was hoped that the two were now...
I'd be fucking aggravated too if I had to do a burglary, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
...reformed, and would be able to live more lawful lives, which could not have been further from the truth. Almost immediately upon being released, Vaughn would call one of his friends to tell them that both he and Edward had plans to go into the mountains and, quote-unquote, shoot some people. And from there, they set off into the wilderness of Oakley, Utah.
Don't do that.
On their expedition, the two stumbled across various cabins where they would break in and either camp out for a while or just completely ransack the place. As in most cases, the owners of these cabins were long gone for the winter due to the inclement weather of the area. Though this wasn't true for everyone, as during the same time, the Tita family, consisting of Father Rolf, his wife Kay, and their two children, Lene and Trish, along with their 76-year-old grandmother, Beth Potts, had been staying in their
fucking gun
cabin to celebrate Christmas together. And so, on the morning of the 22nd, the family would go into nearby Salt Lake City to finish off the last of their Christmas shopping, leaving the cabin unattended at the exact same time that Vaughn and Edward happened to be strolling through the area. Upon breaking in, the two quickly recognized that whoever was living there had only just momentarily stepped away and would be returning at the very latest by Christmas, as evidenced by the gifts sitting under the tree. And finding their first real opportunity to carry out their intended goal of murder, the two hunkered down and waited for the family to arrive back home. While hiding out, it's unknown what exactly the two had done to pass the time, except for a brief few minutes in which Edward would pick up the family's VHS camera and record Vaughn as he tore into the family's gifts.
What the fuck? How do people who go to jail for arson and burglary like become murderers? Like, why is that in their wheelhouse? That's insane. Either they were fucking insane before this, or like jail changed them. I wonder, you know, because if jail's making people more violent, I wonder what's going on there. You know, maybe there's some problems with that system.
The added context makes this video all the more disturbing,
well, yeah,
as Vaughn was opening gifts belonging to the family that they were waiting to kill. And it's made all the more chilling when you notice that Vaughn is carrying a gun, along with the moment that he says Lene Tita's name as he reads it on the gift wrapping. And worst of all is that the gravity of the situation they were currently in clearly had no impact on these two men, as they were completely emotionless. And unsurprisingly, things only get darker from here, as after a few hours, Beth, Kay, and Lene would pull into the driveway. Upon entering the house, the pair of men would immediately point their guns at the family and start making demands, to which Lene responded by praying to God that her and her family be spared, which was of no use, as Edward turned to her and claimed that her prayers wouldn't work, as he only worshipped the devil. And moments later, the two would grab her mother and grandmother and end their lives for no apparent reason. This left only 20-year-old Lene, who tried desperately to convince the men to leave, knowing in the back of her mind that her father Rolf and sister Trish would be arriving soon. But it was to no avail, as her pleading was interrupted by the sound of another snowmobile pulling into the driveway. Upon exiting their vehicle, both Trish and Rolf would be held at gunpoint, with Rolf being told to strip his clothes and give up all his money. Again, pleas were made to just take anything and leave them alone, but the two men remained unfazed. They wanted to cause pain and anguish to anyone and everyone, and nothing was going to stop.
Isn't there like a movie like this, or kind of like this, where like these fucking psychopaths break into somebody's house, and then like there's a mom, I think a daughter, and then a father, and then they torture them? It's called like Happy Something, and they just torture them for like the entire night until they inevitably die. You know what I'm talking about? It sounds like the premise of that movie.
Them. And so Vaughn pointed his gun at Rolf and pulled the trigger, striking the man in the face before delivering one final blow to the back of his head, leaving just the two daughters.
Jesus Christ.
Having thoroughly decimated what just an hour before was a happy, healthy family, Vaughn and Edward would cover Rolf and the cabin in gasoline and set them on fire, before hijacking the snowmobiles with the two remaining daughters and driving away down the hill to a nearby road. However, they weren't alone. On their way out, the kidnappers and their victims would notice a man waving to them in the distance, with the individual being Randy Zorn, their uncle, who recognized the two girls and attempted to flag them down. However, knowing that had they acknowledged their relationship, it would almost certainly get the man killed, they chose to ignore him and told the kidnappers that they had no idea who he was. Sensing something was off, Randy would follow the group down the mountain, where the men were now loading into the family's car. He waved to them once more, this time yelling at the group to stop and even running after them. But again, the girls pretended not to know them, sacrificing a chance at being saved in order to protect their uncle. Confused by this bizarre encounter and apparent urgency from the girls, Randy began to fear that something bad had happened at the family cabin, which was only confirmed when he heard another snowmobile tearing down the mountain.
What did they mention what state this is, dude? Because holy fuck, this makes me want to, like, you know, everybody should have a gun. I mean, holy fuck. How horrifying is that? And I mean, obviously, like, I wonder what they were, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, what they were going to do with those girls, but like, that's horrible as well. Jesus Christ. Hopefully the uncle did something.
On it was a barely clothed Rolf, who despite being shot in the head twice, set on fire, and his eyes being almost completely swollen shut, was somehow alive, and had managed to get on a snowmobile to find help. And it was there that he told Randy, "I've been shot, my wife has been killed, and my daughters have been kidnapped." Something that most likely saved the lives of those two girls, as the police were contacted and were able to quickly track down the vehicle, where the kidnappers would accidentally run it right off the road, flipping it over multiple times before crashing into a ravine. Quite shockingly, no one would be badly injured in the wreck, and following a brief shootout, Vaughn and Edward gave in and were swiftly arrested, bringing this whole nightmare to an end. When the dust eventually settled...
Bro, it's fucking crazy, man, because I remember there's this story going around right now of this father who kills 3 of his kids and just executes them. Horrible. And the police take him in. And watching the video of the guy being, like, so agreeable and stuff... It's so disgusting. It makes you wish that, like, you know, the police would just fucking abuse their power and just take care of them. You know what I mean? It's just so disgusting. You know, I understand the whole thing where, you know, people have a right to a trial, but does everybody? You know, you shoot your fucking infant children. Do you really deserve the right to a trial or an attorney? Like, what the fuck is that? You know, it's just fucking crazy to me, man. It's fucking wild.
settled, Edward would end up receiving life in prison, while Vaughn, the man shown here opening the family's gifts, was sentenced to death, with both men reportedly being visibly shocked at the sight of Rolf when he showed up to court to testify against them.
Yeah.
Rolf would later go on to make a full recovery, which definitely ends the story off on an empowering note, though the carnage left behind by these two men in the moments following this video make it undoubtedly one of the darkest on the site.
That's fucking crazy, dude. I mean, I feel so bad for for everybody. I feel bad for the father and everything. I mean, his wife is killed. You know, if he was really in love with her, I'm sure he was. That's a fucking horrific thing to have to live through that. But at least he has his children, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like any parent would choose their children to be alive over them. But holy fuck, how the fuck do you, like, I don't know, I'd be traumatized for life, man. That's just crazy. Jesus Christ. The one guy's still alive? Why?
Before we get into our next case, I want to first thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video and for believing in this content. I'm a huge believer in therapy now more than ever, just due to the content that I cover, and also due to the general pressure of making a career on the site.
Yeah, true, I get that, but especially making a career doing like all this fucked up shit, I mean, I can't even engage with it more than like once a month without getting upset. I can't imagine making a whole life out of this stuff and it's just completely desensitizing you in this fucking fucked up way, dude.
So for me, therapy isn't just a want, but in many cases it's a need. But the problem is finding a therapist is extremely hard, and that's why I love what BetterHelp is doing, as they're making these important services more accessible and easier to get into. BetterHelp is an online platform, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, you'll get matched with a professional therapist who you can then communicate with by video, phone, or even text message. This is something that I
wonder how effective like this BetterHelp is though, you know? I mean, therapy is so difficult. And, you know, we really do live in a generation where mental health is sexy. I know that sounds weird to say that, but it really is, man. And not in a way where I'm supporting it, but in a way where, like, it is. And, you know, I just truly wonder the dynamic, you know, already speaking, you can have such a bad relationship with a therapist if you're just telling them what they want to hear or you think they want to hear. And if, you know, you can manipulate your own therapist into thinking that you're making progress, even if that's not really the case. And you know, that's something that could be so difficult for a therapist to pick up from through text. So I wonder if that's actually effective. Because I know that we go like, oh, do therapy, it's really good. It is good. It is good, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. And it's not like a one-stop shop for recovery. It takes a lot of honesty and vulnerability in order to engage in it in a way that's constructive. And so I really wonder if this type of I wonder if this is good. I guess the phone call stuff makes sense. Yeah, I know BetterHelp had like a scandal a couple of years ago. I don't really know the specifics of it. I'm assuming it was like not career ending. Probably had to do with, I think, well, my understanding, I could be completely wrong. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It had something to do with them maybe not vetting people correctly or something along those lines.
Prefer, as being able to talk to a therapist right here at home makes it so much easier to open up as opposed to going to some new unknown environment. And also for me, these at-home therapy appointments actually helped me get back into therapy, as getting started was super easy and low pressure. And notably, if you're not really connecting with a therapist you've been matched with, which is a common thing in the world of therapy, BetterHelp makes it very easy for you to switch at literally no cost without having to worry about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if this sounds like something that may be beneficial,
that's interesting. I wonder if that's a good thing. Obviously, you want to find a good therapist, but damn. Imagine you get a therapist and you're making like a breakthrough, but you get so upset, so you just decide to change the therapist, and now all of a sudden you gotta get your square one again. Damn.
To you, which honestly, who among us couldn't benefit from some therapy? You can get 10% off your first month by going to betterhelp.com/Nick Crowley, which I've also linked down below in the description. All right, back to the video.
Okay, do that, guys, if you need therapy.
I gotta keep watching the southwest side. It's where most of them come from.
You think it's likely?
No. The odds are way against it, even in weather like this. But there's always a chance.
The day was already off to a terrifying start, as hail began to fall from the sky and the sun became completely concealed by the dark clouds forming overhead.
The fuck?
This was nothing out of the ordinary for the area though, as Joplin, Missouri is and has been notorious for its consistent threat of massive tornadoes.
Damn.
And so, despite the fear of an impending tornado looming in the area, many just continued about their normal lives, including a select few.
I'd be shitting my pants, man. People just decide that they're gonna go like have some LOL funsies when there's a fucking hurricane or whatever coming, or a tornado, or... Okay, yeah, God bless you.
Who even showed up for school, like Will Norton. The then 16-year-old had been attending Joplin High School, which he was headed for that very day to attend an early morning tennis practice, only to be met by those extreme conditions, with Will later going on to describe the harrowing events of that day in a YouTube video titled, "I Nearly Died."
Yeah.
So I get ready really fast and I rush to school, out the door, and then I'm leaving for school and there is just tons of rain. And the wind is so crazy. You just see water. It's like horizontal rain and all the cars are like veering. I was having trouble keeping my car on the road. I drive a Hummer. This should not be happening. Anyway, I made it safely home and I think I'm just gonna go take a nap for the rest of my life because I didn't die. Oh my gosh,
Are there places with like, there has to be places where like that would be a reason to stay out from school, no? Like when snow gets bad enough here in New York, you're told to stay home from school. Why would they even let you go to class if the rain is that bad? That sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm done.
The video was posted to his YouTube channel called WillDeBeast88883333, where he had found genuine success in the early days of YouTube, becoming a pioneer on what was then a brand new space, long before YouTubers were ever actually a thing. But throughout his entire channel, this upload was by far the most chilling, not just due to the brush with death he experienced that day, but because of the events that would unfold just 2 years following its release. The date was May 2nd, 2011, but for students of Joplin High School, they simply referred to it as Graduation Day, the day in which Will and his classmates would walk the stage into the next chapter of their lives. It was an event that Will and his family watched excitedly from the crowd, before the moment was interrupted by the ringing of a tornado siren. These sirens lasted only around 30 seconds, leaving many unfazed as they were practically a daily routine in the area, given just how common
what's the fucking hook here? Is that the siren went down because of the fucking weather was so bad and now everybody's gonna die? This is terrible. Okay.
Your weather was. And with no further alerts coming through their phones, aside from a standard warning letting them know that conditions were ripe for a tornado, things continued on as normal from there. With the rain now starting to fall, Will's sister Sarah, along with their mother and grandmother, chose to hop in the car and head home in order to get a head start on preparation for the night's graduation party, leaving Will and his father around 20 minutes behind, with Will driving the two home in his beloved Hummer, which he had mentioned often across his channel. And with that, the family was split up into two cars, one that at this point was almost home, and another that was just beginning their route, which is when things began to get more worrisome. Suddenly, the rain fell even harder, and the winds began blowing horizontally, to the point that trees were starting to bend over and eventually break due to the strain. Recognizing the worsening conditions, Mark would call Sarah, who had just arrived at home, to ask her to open the garage for them so they can pull right in and avoid having to get out in this worsening weather. A request that couldn't be completed, as right after their phone call, the power would suddenly shut off, rendering the door impossible to open. And so, Sarah called back with the update to let the two know that they would likely have to park outside and make a run for it through the front door. Though by this point, the sound of wind was nearly deafening over the phone, and despite repeatedly asking, "Dad, where are you?" all she could hear was wind, until the sound was broken by her father yelling, "Will, pull over. There's the tornado. Pull over."
From the KSN Storm Center, this is a severe weather alert.
I'm sorry, it's not funny. I'm like fucking scared out of my fucking pants here. And then we see some the KSM weather alert. A Hummer has flipped over on the side of the road. People are saying he has a huge penis. Because, of course, everybody who drives a Hummer has a huge penis. Hopefully this guy's alive and nobody got hurt. Or else this would be a very insensitive joke about Hummers. Yeah. So let's hope not.
Good evening. We're back. We've got some information on this storm. Let's go ahead and go to the Freeman First Alert Doppler radar. Trained weather spotters in Galena are reporting now sightings of funnel clouds going off in Joplin. Those are definitely power flashes that we are seeing on the ground.
Have a tornado on the ground.
This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous
Jesus
situation.
Christ.
We cannot stress this enough. If you are in Joplin, please take cover.
Bro, I ain't ever moving. I'm staying here. Holy fuck, man. This shit's fucking crazy. I couldn't imagine dealing with that.
No, it is certainly going off. Caitlin, I'm just looking out the door right now. Please do not go outside.
Stop looking out the door, asshole. You know?
Towering in front of Will and his father was a massive 1-mile-wide tornado, with its winds gusting around 250 miles per hour. It was an EF5, the highest ranking a tornado can achieve, and now, Will and Mark were directly in its path. Suddenly, all Sarah could hear over the phone was the sound of crashing and destruction, before the call would be dropped. In that very moment, the tornado would come in direct contact with the Hummer, causing it to flip in the air multiple times, and despite Mark desperately holding on to his son, Will would slip through his father's arms and be sucked out of the car's sunroof. Somehow, Mark would manage to—
What the fuck? I mean, I'm assuming the sunroof wasn't open, so what did it, like, rip the sunroof off and then suck the dude out of the fucking car? Jesus Christ, how does that even happen? Is that like when those sinkholes happen and it like sucks people down into them? That's fucking horrific.
to survive the direct hit of the tornado, but so many others were not as lucky, as the disaster would leave a staggering 158 people dead,
Jesus.
including Will, who despite being missing for days, would be found at the bottom of a nearby pond days later.
Jesus
The story
Christ.
alone is incredibly grim, but it's made all the more disturbing by the video posted 2 years before, which now features so many chilling moments of foreshadowing.
I'd pull over into the big puddles and I was like, ah. Keep in mind, I drive a Hummer, so really I shouldn't have any reason to be scared. Anyway, I made it safely home, and I think I'm just gonna go take a nap for the rest of my life. I'm done. I am done. I'm never driving in weather again, ever. Bye, guys.
But although this certainly classifies as one of the darker videos on the site, the Norton family has turned this tragedy into something positive and celebrates his life as opposed to focusing on his tragic passing, with Sarah herself even bravely coming forward and releasing a video outlining her entire story of that day.
He's in a good place. It's just hard on us who are left here dealing with all of it, but
Yeah.
it's okay. He's just in the best place ever. So, yeah. That's something to be happy about. He wouldn't want us to be sad.
Well, you know, he's in a good place now, guys, and that's because there's Chuck E. Cheese in heaven. So, you know, play one of those games for me, brother. You know what I mean? Play one of those games for me. That's fucked up, though, man. That's sad as hell.
Time is getting closer and closer. The seconds are ticking. Excitement is building.
What the fuck is this? Did a tornado or a hurricane or whatever hit Sesame Street, dude? I can't handle that. Not Snuffleupagus. Well, that's actually he's actually an imaginary friend. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I couldn't handle if Snuffleupagus, if something happened to him, unless some kind of like a puppet plane hit the third tower, you know. But
it was said to be the party of the year, a celebration to say goodbye to 2008 and hello to a brand new promising year.
Okay.
It was New Year's Eve, the day where everyone is looking for a fun party to attend, and in Bangkok, Thailand, the Santika Club was the place to be. The event was dubbed Goodbye Santika.
Oh, did we see this story already? Is there a story of like this club, and this is the one where it got on fire, but there wasn't enough fire exits or something? Or am I thinking of a different place? That's what it sounds like. Am I wrong about that?
Hitting on the theme of leaving the past behind and starting fresh in this new year. And in preparation, promotional commercials would be shot and aired all throughout the region, building up even more hype for the much anticipated event.
Goodbye, Santika.
Bye.
It promised to be their best show yet, with live music from numerous well-known artists and, of course, lots and lots of alcohol.
Yeah, I was there.
And sure enough, as New Year's Eve rolled around, this hype would translate into a large crowd swarming the doors to be part of this special occasion. And as the clock ticked closer and closer to midnight, the crowd only continued to grow, with it being estimated that as many as 1,000 people were in attendance.
Damn.
At this point, very few videos exist from this night, though in the time since, 3 key clips have come forward that piece together the events which transpired once the crowd had gathered. At 11:44 p.m., with a big day only minutes away, this video was taken up close to the stage, showing not only the high energy of the night, but also the massive people crammed into this venue. It truly was the place to be, the kind of party that so many would have loved to be part of.
Yep.
But this wasn't even the main event.
And then the tragedy of this story, guys, is this: the music wasn't great, and everybody went home a little disappointed. The end. You know, and sometimes it do be like that. You know what I mean? Not everything has to be. Nobody died though, thankfully. Everybody's okay, and we're all fine, and it's okay, and we all live happily ever after, and that's truly the blessing of the Lord.
Midnight was fast approaching, and the owner of the club had promised a spectacle that the city would never forget. And so an idea was hatched to give patrons sparklers which would be lit and used during the countdown.
Everybody knows that some form of fire and tight spaces, small spaces, they go well together, very, very well. Everybody knows that.
The camera shuts off after first showing a happy couple celebrating together, and then panning to the stage where the performers were hyping up the crowd even more and launching pyrotechnics of their own into the air, adding to the explosive atmosphere within the club. And finally, we have our third and final video, this one having taken place just a few minutes following the cell phone footage. Only this time, the cameraman was outside of the venue.
Damn. Teleported. Is a demon.
No one really knows how it started. Perhaps it was the fireworks launched indoors as part of the performance, or maybe it was the countless sparklers handed out to a sea of drunken people, or potentially it was a combination of both. But regardless, somehow a blaze had erupted, quickly spreading to the club ceiling, where the crowd would actually cheer it on, mistakenly believing that it was part of the event, as at that same exact time, a band just so happened to be performing by the name of Burn. By this point, the performers knew immediately that the fire was unplanned and that an emergency was brewing, and so they slipped off the stage and out the back exit, with no guidance being given to the 1,000+ people in the venue, none of whom had realized the danger they were truly in.
Wow.
Until...
You know what's really fucked up, though, thinking about it? That, like, I Show Speed could have made this list. Like, all fucking around aside. Like, I Show Speed could have actually, like, unironically made this list, you know? Like, because remember he lit that fucking thing on fire, almost burned his house down? Like, imagine that as one of these horrible YouTube tragedies. We're sitting here recanting the successful career of I Show Speed and how for a stupid joke he decided to almost burn his goddamn house down. That would be fucked up. Jesus.
The power would shut down, with the inside falling pitch black and silent, save for the crackling of the spreading fire, illuminating the area to avoid, but not the area to run to. And suddenly, panic-driven chaos ensued. There were multiple exits, but just too many people, too much darkness, too much smoke. And in the matter of just a few minutes, the fire had consumed every inch of safety within that building. The tales told from within that event are horrid, with some of the most disturbing being not about the crush of humans surging towards the exit, or the unstoppable blaze moving at lightning speed, but instead, about a chandelier.
Ah, Sia made a song about that.
In the video preceding the disaster, we see briefly through the low-quality imagery a chandelier, the club's crown jewel, measuring in at a whopping 10 meters in diameter and weighing over a ton. And while the fire began to spread to the ceiling, it came in contact with the base of this massive artifact, causing it to heat up and eventually snap from its support, landing atop of the crowd below and taking the lives of multiple people.
Jesus.
When the smoke eventually cleared on the catastrophe and the carnage was fully revealed, it would be announced that 67 people had lost their lives that day, with countless others being burned and permanently disfigured, leading to the club owner being jailed for 3 years.
Oh, that's
Despite
good.
the true cause still being debated to this day, the video from directly beforehand shows...
Is it still really debated? I don't mean to laugh. Is it really being debated? They told people to light off fucking sparklers. It doesn't really seem like a robust debate to me. Probably maybe an idiot told people to light off sparklers might have been the cause here.
Just how lax the safety measures were, as even if they weren't the direct cause, giving sparklers to 1,000 drunken people indoors was just a disaster waiting to happen. And in the end, the party truly did live up to its name. Goodbye, Santika, as the club was burned past the point of recognition, and now sits as dark as the videos surrounding it.
Damn. This is so scary.
Our final video is probably one of the most unusual cases that I've come across in quite some time, with that being the story of Akmal Sheikh. Born in Pakistan in 1956, Sheikh had spent the majority of his life unnoticed.
I say that sometimes. Aye, ma, shake it, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of a boomer joke for you. How do you like that? Bring a little bit of levity to this very spooky scenario that we're investigating.
Spending his days mainly outside of the gaze of the public eye, though that didn't mean his life was...
Wow. Are you homophobic?
uneventful by any means. Over the years, Sheikh would move from country to country starting numerous new businesses, like in the 80s when he moved to the US to become a real estate agent, and then in the 90s when he moved to London to start a minicab business. With the only problem being that none of these ventures ever really stuck, causing him to live in a state of poverty, even at one point going bankrupt following the decline of his cab business. And his failures didn't stop there, as in 2003, Sheikh would be accused of sexual harassment and unfair dismissal of a 24-year-old employee, resulting in his wife taking his kids and filing for a divorce, which would be far from his last legal struggle. In 2005, Sheikh was placed under official investigation following the London bombings, as he was caught sending a text to his friends stating, "Now everyone will understand who Muslims are and what jihad is,"
Jesus Christ.
while at the same time being accused of threatening his ex-wife. Now, none of these claims ever led to any official legal charges, though he would be arrested just months later for driving under the influence. As you can see, Sheikh's life was a roller coaster, and at this point he was on his largest drop yet, disgraced and living off of handouts and eating out of soup kitchens nearly every night, until the year 2007, when his life would change forever. During a public demonstration that year, Sheikh would be introduced to a man named Gareth Saunders, a musician who had ties all throughout the music industry, including with numerous recording studios in the area. And it was during this chance meeting that
sounds like he was going to make an explosive single. Shouldn't have said that.
Shaik's life purpose would be discovered. At some point prior, Shaik, a man with no musical experience whatsoever, had written a song called Come Little Rabbit, which he believed would propel him to worldwide stardom. But it went even deeper than that, as Shaik was so sure that not only would the song break records and become a global phenomena, but also that it would bring the world together and usher in a new era of peace on Earth.
This kind of sounds like Hitler's origin story. I'm not trying to be a fucking asshole or anything, but I mean, it's like, you know, the starving artist kind of a, you know, skladoo, you know what I mean? Seems a little suspicious here, a little crazy.
In a sense, he believed that this song could truly save the world, and with this in mind, he began to beg his new acquaintance to help him record the song in a studio, a request that Gareth eventually seemed to accept, as that very same year, Come Little Rabbit would be recorded and released to the public.
Come little rabbit, come to me, come little rabbit, let it be. Come little rabbit, come and pray, la ilaha illallah.
Wow. It's a lot of hope to have for that song, man. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to be disrespectful there, brother, you know? That's wild, man. That's fucking wild.
As you can probably tell just based on how things are going so far, the song did not perform as intended, and sadly the world did not come together in harmony upon its release, likely because the song just wasn't very good.
Whoa! Jesus, man. Fucking rude. Alright, what the hell?
The sad reality of the situation was that Akmal Shaik was a very mentally unwell man, and these big dreams that he had throughout his life were, in most cases, more so delusions. And though we don't know for sure what exactly he was suffering from, many close to him described his behavior as being on par with severe bipolar disorder, and Come Little Rabbit was the latest example of his struggling mental state, representing a point in which he detached his furthest from reality. And sadly, it was this very song that would drive his life to an even lower point. As the world continued on with its usual chaos after the release of Come Little Rabbit, Shaik still believed that it could provide peace on Earth, becoming convinced that the only reason it hadn't worked already was that no one knew who he was. But this was all going to change after he received an opportunity that would shift the course of his life.
I mean, honestly, maybe it would have made like a good kid's song or something. Who really knows, you know?
Around the same time, Shaik was introduced to a man named Akmal, who had just the opportunity waiting for him. By pure chance, a once-in-a-lifetime performance had opened up in one of China's biggest nightclubs that just so happened to be owned by Akmal, and supposedly being impressed by Come Little Rabbit, Akmal decided he was going to fly Shaik out to China to fill that slot and perform in front of thousands.
Wow.
And so on September 12th, 2007, Akmal would be flown to China free of charge to make his dream a reality. But before leaving, Shaik was given a single suitcase by Akmal, which he was told to bring along with him to their destination, since due to a scheduling conflict, Akmal had to cancel the flight, leaving Akmal all on his own.
Damn.
By all accounts, the flight there went smoothly, though trouble quickly arose when the plane touched down at Urumqi Airport in China, as there was one major issue. Shaik didn't speak the language, and so, once released at the gate, the man had no idea where to go and was unable to communicate with anyone, leading to him pacing—
Nobody? There was no translators in that airport? I mean, I guess we don't know what the airport looks like, unless this is actual footage, but I feel like their airport's got to have some kind of something to, like some kind of translator or something, no? Like nothing at all to help this guy fucking figure out where the hell he is?
Around nervously and acting slightly erratic, which didn't go unnoticed by airport security. They watched the man's behavior deteriorate for several minutes before ultimately making the decision to detain him and search his belongings, believing that surely he was up to something suspicious, which is when they'd opened that very bag given to Akmal by Akmal, only to discover a staggering 4 kilograms of heroin.
Ah, damn. That makes sense, man. Right before it happened, I was like, oh shit, that makes sense. But then why wouldn't they be more why wouldn't they be more available to pick him up, like where they were at, if they had like a lot of money worth of heroin? That doesn't make sense to me.
The discovery sent Shaik into a panic, as he was completely unaware that he was transporting illegal contents.
How do you even know he had
the bag didn't even belong to him, stating adamantly that it belonged to his friend Akmal, who was flying in on the next flight and would be there soon to help clear things up. And so surprisingly, security seemed to believe him, as they all sat waiting for Akmal to step off the next plane and set the entire situation straight, though he never did.
I mean, what would set it straight regardless? Still got a bunch of fucking heroin in there.
In reality, Sheikh had been tricked into becoming a drug mule, taken advantage of with his mental illness used against him to make him commit a crime he had nothing to do with. There was never any club and there was never any performance, it was all just a ruse. And despite the authorities' willingness to wait for the man at first, their patience soon wore thin, and Sheikh was arrested for drug smuggling, with his punishment being death.
A British man convicted of drug smuggling.
What the fuck? Death? That's insane. I mean, I get jail time, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, you know, he's the victim of the circumstance, but fucking death? There's no fucking way. That's insane.
In China has now been told of his fate. Akmal Sheikh will be executed by firing squad within 24 hours unless the Chinese authorities have mercy on him. His family says he has a history of mental illness and may have been duped into smuggling drugs by traffickers.
The decision was extremely controversial all across the world, with the backlash leading to the case being heard for a second time in 2009. And despite numerous requests by Sheikh's lawyer to have the man undergo a mental evaluation, as he had been quite clearly taken advantage of, they were rejected, and the initial ruling was upheld, with a date being set for his execution on the 29th of December. Following this shocking decision, the first and one of the only 4 recordings of Come Little Rabbit would be posted to YouTube, which featured not only the lyrics, but also the sad story of Sheikh along with it, including a call to the viewers to join the effort in stopping the impending execution, as part of a massive final push to change the minds of China's government.
Bro, I like they're playing this like creepy undertone to the music that's like fucking me up. You know, it sounds like this guy's a victim. Don't play the creepy undertone. Let it be received in all of its glory. Like Hosea in the highest. Hosea in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of your glory. Is Hosanna or Hosea? I don't know. You think I would. Anyway, sad stuff.
Come little rabbit, come to me. Come little rabbit, let it be. Come little rabbit, let us pray. La ilaha illallah.
But it was no use. Now on the morning of December 29th, Akmal Sheikh would receive a lethal injection, with China supposedly walking back their plans to execute him via firing squad. Though either way, the man was dead, and his body would never be returned.
That's fucked.
Today, the video of Akmal's song and the pleas to save his life remain as a forgotten relic here on YouTube, encapsulating the story of a man whose desire to bring the world together in song was cruelly taken advantage of. And though it was peace that he was so desperately seeking, the song would only lead to his ultimate demise.
I don't think, yeah, I guess it did, because they took advantage of it for a song. But why do you gotta play some spooky shit out of this guy's stuff? Alright, Jesus. Well, you know, sad stuff, man, to this guy. Definitely wronged. Free my dude. Free my little rabbit, I guess. I don't know.